1, 2. 1, 2. Welcome to our project of a lifetime. This is 22 hectares of land that was clear-felled and destroyed in 2024. Our dream is to help regenerate this all into a native forest. Another major upgrade took place recently. We've doubled the containers from 1 to 2, and psychologically that has made another big difference. There's a lot more space. A lot of empty space at this moment as well. Today I want to walk you through a little bit of how we got here and what the plans are going forward. We had been putting this off for a little bit. We had been thinking of getting a second one at some stage down the line, but seeing the global situation, it's very likely that in 6 months to a year from now, containers are going to be very scarce or at least very expensive. And also the container on this side is very close to a bank that is becoming quite unstable, so we want to move it forward, and that has kind of triggered the thinking behind, okay, so if we're going to get that one moved, get the second one on site, we might as well do a bit of thinking about semi-permanent positions for both of them. Just to give you an idea of what the bank looks like behind the first container, for now there's just a lot of water that comes running down, but some of those sticking out pieces are getting quite unstable. And initially we thought having it nice and close to the wall would be good for wind protection and that kind of thing. However, I think over the long term it would make sense to move it forward a little bit. We spent quite a bit of time debating and brainstorming about where we're going to put them. First container goes that way, point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, doors facing this way, opens up. This is going to be a covered area in between the two containers. Second container comes there, first point, second point, third point, fourth point. So in a line this way, a nice little overhang above the two of them. We've got a very sophisticated design system. It involves using tiles, a piece of string, a measuring tape and more tiles. Basically each corner of the container is represented by a tile. We've got multiple sets of the tiles, so 4 tiles makes a container, and then we've aligned them up in different locations in different styles to kind of get a feel for it. And we had been doing a bit of design work with regards to the interior, because that also makes a big difference for how you set up the containers, of course. So where does the bedroom go? Those kinds of things really make a difference with regards to how you set them up, and even how you set up the containers is also, there's a lot of variation with what you can do. You can keep them separate or put them all together or put them partially together, those kinds of things. We've got the second container coming in a couple of days, so we want to be able to at least put them in a semi-permanent position. We know we want this one moved forward because it is too close to the wall, but how do we put it in relation to the second container that's going to be dropped off? But then in the end, the neighbor was like, yeah, nah, that's not going to work that way. You want to put them pretty much parallel to each other or completely opposite to each other in one straight line. There's basically 2 benefits to that. The first one is you can use the doors, which open up pretty much perfectly to each other as kind of a windbreak in an extra wall. Basically extends the whole living space and the usable space out in front of the containers. So that's another 2.5 meters basically that you get on top by using the doors. And then secondly, by having them pretty much opposite each other in a straight line, it will be able to connect the opposite points with some wood and some sheet metal, and it'll be relatively easy and stable to put a roof over the top. At the moment we've just got the tarp, which is a temporary construction. Here I am behind the 2 containers, and you can see how almost perfectly the doors align. There's a little bit of gap going upwards, but the lockbox in front here fits into the second part of the lockbox of the other container, and in that way I can shift the lock in there so that the doors stay nice and taut and close together. This allows that wall effect to be pretty much perfect. I'd say this is probably 80% planning and doing measurements, and probably 20% luck of getting the containers right on the perfect spot that you hoped it would become, and then opening the doors and they fit perfectly. What a gift. Then the final benefit, we will be able over time to use some kind of other protection, maybe either pallets, some wood or some other sheet metal that'll come across. I've just used a log temporarily as an improvisation, but we'll be able to cut off this whole bottom section from wind and cold air as well. And then on the inside over here, we'll be able to put down some pallets or some other kind of materials that'll raise the floor, connect the containers to each other. That is again going to help prevent some of the cold air and the wind to come in. You'll notice they're on tiles, so they're raised above the ground. This gives us two benefits. The first one is we've got storage underneath, but it's also one of the easiest ways to level the container because they're pretty much near level, and it's the easiest way to get them level when the high-ab truck comes in and drops them off. So you can easily add in a tile or remove a tile to kind of balance it and get it level on all four corners. And once it's level, it'll be very stable, even though it looks like it's not very stable just on a couple of tiles. But because of the weight and because of the physics basically of it, the 4 points press down onto the tiles and make it a very solid structure. One of the plans that we have at the moment is we'll probably designate one of the containers, the empty one, to become a bit more of a storage container. And then if I cross over to the other side, this one will become more of the living container, so we can move some of the stuff that we're not really using at the moment into the other container, across to the other side, and make this a bit more open. The plan is we're hopefully going to get some glass sliding doors from the neighbors that we can kind of squeeze in there, so we can also close it off. We've got this little cabinet from the op shop, and we'll probably look into getting a few more of these things because mentally that trick really helps, having things stored and tucked away nicely. All those things together, all those little details combined, are going to make it a little bit more comfortable than it was. Definitely another step forward. And we had been feeling a little bit anxious and a little bit apprehensive about the winter time with more rainfall and colder temperatures. But I'm thinking with a little roof on the top, a raised floor, and maybe even some glass doors in one of them, it'll become a lot more comfortable, at least a lot more doable to come spend some more time out here in the winter time, even with a bit of rain, which will be another great opportunity to observe the landscape during the rain time, because we've been mostly avoiding that kind of weather because we only had the one container. The lesson that I drew from this experience, more of a reminder actually, is sometimes you get an external nudge. There's just these tiny little messages, these little nudges through a person or through another experience that offer us so much more down the line, but we have to remember to be open to them in the moment so that we can accept all the value that comes from it later down the line. I got a little nudge saying you might want to look into getting a second container. I followed that through, and within a week from getting that little nudge, we had the second container on the land in the right, almost perfect position, and we are ready to move forward, getting a roof on top and those kinds of things. So if you've had one of those nudges recently, it's worthwhile listening to them and following through with that, because you never know where you end up and the benefits that you'll get from them. And talking about nudges, I've got a little nudge. I would like to nudge you into helping us a little bit with this beautiful project, and you can do so by taking one of your favorite videos, find one of them that you like, and share that around with a few people around you that you know. So either send them a personal message or share it on a Facebook group that you're part of, or a WhatsApp group, those kinds of things. Doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be bold, just a few people in your inner circles, and share some of our work with them. That would be lovely. We'd really appreciate if you do that for us. It is one of the ways that you can really help us and this beautiful project out at the moment. So thank you for doing that, and we'll catch you in a next one.